we have to take the initial test to like get in or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
The initial dosing one. So
okay.
I don't know what we need to study or what we need to know exactly. I mean.
Okay, yeah. Well, then I'll just go over the whole worksheet because this is pretty much everything that's going to be on the exam. So usually we just start with like some tips. So a lot of people like kind of hype up.
I think she froze.
That's why I was just going to ask if she froze.
Mackenzie, we can't. I think you froze.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
We didn't hear anything you said.
Oh no. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I have like full Wi-Fi. Okay, just put in the chat box if like freeze again or something. I don't know. But so it shouldn't stress you out as long as you guys do all the practice questions that they give you guys. It's not a big deal. So on here, I can send this all to you guys because I have all your guys' email. So these are all the conversions, pretty much like they're pretty standard conversions that you guys should know, kind of off the top of your head because they're not going to give you a conversion before the exam. So I can send this all to you guys, and this will be helpful when we're doing like the worksheet, so we can reference back to that. So one thing about the MedMath exam is you need to write your units if it's not already on the paper. So I usually, when I'm taking the exam, I usually just write my units in just to be safe, because if you forget to write in a unit, you get the question wrong. Also, these are really important things. So you always want to use a leading zero. So like you want to do like 0.5, but you never want to use a trailing zero. So it wouldn't be like 0.50. You never put a zero after, only a zero before. I know it's weird and you will get docked. So if you put like 0.50, that's wrong and you'll miss the question, just because in nursing, like they're really picky about it. So just make sure you pay attention to that when you're studying and stuff. And then also when you're doing like 0.5 or something, for example, you never put like 1/2. It's always going to be in a decimal form. Never put it in a fraction form or it'll be marked wrong. So yeah, that's kind of just like the basics. And then we can just kind of like start doing problems. So the first part of it starts like pretty basic, like standard math, just like regular conversions. So like round the following to the nearest tenth. So I don't know if this is something that's new to you guys or not. Obviously
Form froze.
I froze again.
Yeah, it's like froze between the MedMath tips and the other paper.
It is?
That's your screen.
Okay. Is it still frozen between the screens?
Yeah, just your screen is. The one that you're showing us is frozen. Not you, but the one that you're sharing.
Let's see if I can. How about now? Let's see.
Still the same, I think.
It's gone now.
Okay.
But it's, oh, there it is.
Yeah, you got
Okay,
it.
cool. Sorry. Okay. So like round to the nearest tenth. So obviously you have your ones place and then it goes tenths, hundreds, and thousands. Usually on the exam, they're not really going to go into the thousands, but it's good to know. So for this one, if we want to round to the nearest tenths, that's our tenths place. So it's above 5. We're going to round up to 3.1. So that's what it's going to be. Most of the questions on the exam are going to say round to the nearest tenth. It's sometimes we'll say hundreds, but it's usually going to go to the tenth. So this is good practice to make sure you're rounding correctly, because a lot of people miss the rounding questions. And if you round incorrectly or you don't go to the proper place, you're going to get it wrong. Okay, so 121.16. So the rounding rules are if the number following it is above 5, you're going to round up. And if it's not, you're going to leave it as is. So 121.16 is going to turn into 121.2. 4.37 is going to turn into 4.4, right? Because 7 is above 5. 10.26 is going to turn into 10.2 or 10.3. Because again, I don't know why there's not like a lower one. I'm just doing what Ms. Chafin gave me. And then, so this one, sometimes people get tricked up on these. So 0.3256. So like, it's not asking about the one spot, right? So it's gonna end up being 0.3, right? Because 2 is less than 5. So it just stays as 0.3. Don't let those like freak you out, because that's probably going to be something that's asked on the exam. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this one is now rounding to the hundredths. So sort of the same concept, just one spot over, right? So it's 78.386. So since 6 is above 5, it's going to be 78.39. 8.875 is going to turn into 8.88 because it's 5, right? Okay, so this one, 3.294 is just going to stay 3.29 because 4 is below 5. And then this one again is just going to stay 5.11. And this one is going to be 0.293. So since 3 is below 5, it's just going to stay at 0.29. Also, if like
I do have one, sorry.
Yeah.
I do have one question. So, and this always confuses me, just like in my own math class I have right now. If E was 0.97, sorry, screaming kids. If it was 0.97, how would you write that?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So if it was 0.297, that would turn into a 10, right? So it's going to turn into 0.3.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I just never know how to write it properly, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
I
probably
confuse
something that
myself.
to make sure that you can round them. It's really hard for me to like annotate on here, but yeah, so if you have a 9 and the one behind it is greater than 5, it's going to turn into 10, which obviously will be a 0. So you'll always round up to the next spot, which will be the 10th spot. So it'll end up being 0.3.
What if it's 0.97?
What if it's 0.97?
Yeah.
Then the 7 will obviously round up the 9, and then that'll turn into 1.
So do we push it 1.00?
So it'll turn into 1. The good thing about dosage calc is if you don't need to you never put a trailing 0, right? So it's always just going to be 1. You'll only put a leading 0. So in dosage calc, we're never going to put like 0.50. It's only going to be 0.5. So on this case, if it was 0.97, the 7 would round up the 9, which is going to turn into 1, and it'll just be 1. It won't be like 1.0. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. And if anyone has any questions that like doesn't want to say it out loud, just you can send me like a private chat or email or whatever, and I'm happy to help. Okay, so military time is also something, I feel like that's the biggest thing that trips people up on these exams.
Can you go up quick first? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's up?
Can you go up real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that last. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
There, I'm good.
While
Okay.
you're still up there, do you think you can go over that placement really quick? It glitched out for me. I know like before the decimals, like the ones, and then after the decimal, does it go
Yeah.
tens, hundreds, thousands, or?
Yeah, so it'll be like, this is your ones, hundreds, right? Like that's going up. So it's kind of the same concept going down after the decimal. So it's going to be like tenths, hundredths, and then thousands. And it ends in like a TH.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so military time. The best way I like to think about military time is literally from like all 4 zeros, right? And then all the way up to 2,400 hours. So in like all clinical places that you're going to go to, all the clocks are going to have military time. And it's kind of weird at first, but something that has really helped me is setting my phone and my watch and my computer to military time to really help you remember it, because there's a lot of questions on the exam. And when you go into semester 6, there's another dosage calc exam, and you're going to have to do it then there too. So it's good to just know. So it can be like kind of confusing if you've never seen military time before. So it starts at, 1 a.m. is where it's going to start. So it's going to be like 100 hours. And then it'll be like 200 hours for 2 a.m. And then it'll be 300 hours for 3 a.m. So this one is 3:15 a.m. So it's going to be 3:15. So, okay, so now we have 9:25 p.m., right? And this one sometimes confuses people because you have to go past like 1200 or 1200, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. So what I do is I take 1200 and then I just add 9 onto it, right? So like you're gonna, oh, sorry, I kind of erased it, but so you're gonna take 1200 and then you're gonna add 9, which is gonna give you 2100, and then you'll just add your minutes, which will be 25. So I always, like, when in doubt, I'm like, ooh, I don't know what that would be. I always just go to 1200 and then I just add whatever number it is. And I feel like that's the easiest way to go about it. So 8:13 a.m. is going to be 8:13. 10:23 p.m. the same thing. So I'm going to take 1200 and then I'm going to add 10, right? And then I'm going to add my minutes, 23. So it'll be 22:23. And then 4:49 a.m. is going to be 04:49. So then going back to the original is, I feel like, what can be a little bit more tricky. Well, no. So 0422, right? That's going to be 4:22 a.m. 22:15. I really hate going back and forth with these, but right, that's going to be 10:15 p.m. I'm sorry if these are cut off a little bit too. 09:05, that's going to be 9:05 a.m. And then 07:10, that's going to be 7:10 a.m., right? Because anytime there's an O before the number, it's going to be a.m. And then every time it's like a big number past 1200, that's going to be p.m. And then 1300, that's 1:10, right? Does that make sense to everyone, or does anyone have any questions about military time? No? Okay. I can only see like one. Oh, I can see you guys more. Okay. Okay, cool. So this question says, you started work at 0700 and you ended at 1630. How many hours did you work? So I'll give you guys like a second to kind of think about it because I don't want to like reveal the answer right away. I don't remember which one I blocked off as the writing. Okay, cool. So the best way to set up these problems is usually take the biggest number, which is 1630, and then you're just going to subtract 0700 from it. So in turn, that's going to give us 9.5 hours. I'm trying to think, like, I wish I had like a whiteboard to write on, but so if you started at 7 a.m., that's 7 a.m., 0700 hours, and then you ended work at 1630, you'll just take the biggest number and subtract it from, I like to look at them as like a math problem. So like you're just going to subtract them, right? So it's going to be 9.5 hours. And that's exactly how it'll look on the exam. And you'll literally just write 9.5 hours. Okay, so an IV was started at 1100 and ended at 3:30 p.m. How many hours did it run? So think about like how we would set it up, and we need to convert to military time or convert 1100 back. So we're going to do 1530 minus 1100 because 3:30 is going to be 1530. And then we'll do minus 1100. And then that'll give us 4:30. So that's what time, right? So it'll be 4.5 hours. Okay. Okay, cool. We'll keep going. A patient is admitted at 0600 Monday morning and is discharged at 0800 the following morning. How many hours did the patient spend in the hospital? So we'll think about like, okay, so they're admitted at 0600. And so that's going to be 24 hours that passed, right? Because like 0600 Tuesday morning will be 24 hours. And then they're discharged at 0800 the following morning. So that's 24 hours plus 2 hours. And that's kind of how I like to look at them is like, okay, if it's going to be past 24 hours, let's just know it's 24 hours. And then how many hours after the 24 hours, right? If that kind of makes sense. So they do it like that. And I think that's a little bit more confusing how they did it. But pretty much if you know it's 0600 on Monday, that's 24 hours to 0600 on Tuesday, plus 2 hours, which is 26 hours. Is everyone following that, or did that not make sense?
Yeah, I think your way is easier to understand.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
That makes sense.
Okay. So as long as if everyone's good with military time, we can move on to like conversions. So this is where we'll want to go back and reference. I don't know if I can like swipe my screen.
Hey,
You guys see my
Mackenzie.
screen now?
Sorry. Hey, did you say you were sending it to us, those questions?
Yeah, I can if you want
Okay.
to.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Let's see if I can go back and forth between my conversions. 1 second. I don't know how to get you guys to see like my other screen at the same time. Okay, but that's okay. So, oh, it's right here. Duh, obviously. Okay, so this is when we'll like kind of use these conversions to help us out. So we have, I'm sorry, this is taking me so long. Okay, so convert the following. What is the conversion factor? So we have 2.5 grams to milligrams. So kind of just like a standard thing to know is like how many milligrams are in a gram, right? And then how many kilograms are in a gram. So it's either going to be, it's always 1,000. So you'll always move the decimal place 3 times to the right or 3 times to the left. So you have grams and milligrams is less than grams, right? So 1 gram is going to be 1,000 milligrams. And then 1 kilogram is going to be 1,000 grams. So with that, the easiest way I like to do it is I like to just take my decimal point and I say, okay, it's 2.5 grams. I know it's milligrams, which is smaller. I'm going to move my decimal point to the right 3 times. So I just go 1, 2, 3, and I add in the zeros and it'll give us that. They do it in a conversion way, which is totally fine. If that makes sense to you, I can explain it that way too. I just thought I'd explain my way first. So they start with 2.5 grams, and then you're always going to give what you have, like desired over half. So we're given 2.5 grams, and we know that 1 gram has 1,000 milligrams. So you can pretend like the 2.5 grams is over 1, if that makes the conversion easier for you. And all you'll do is times 2.5, times 1,000. And then that's going to give you 2,500. So whichever way you like to do more, for those, like if it's just grams to milligrams or kilograms, it's easier to just move the decimal. But if you understand the conversion, that works too.
So that's why you're telling us to memorize that first chart that you showed.
Yeah, this chart right here, if you
won't
guys
get
can see
that
it on the screen.
They're not going to give that to us on the exam.
No, unfortunately, it's not. You have to know your conversions for the exam. But
Okay.
if you just know these, you'll be totally fine.
Okay.
Okay, so if we have 340 milliliters to liters, we know that milliliters is smaller to liters, so our number is going to get smaller, right? Because the milliliters is bigger. So what I do is I just take my decimal and I move it to the left 3 times. If you guys don't like that, that's okay. Sorry, it kind of is chucked out in chunks, but so we'll kind of just do the same thing, right? So we know that our number needs to be smaller, which is going to be a division problem. So you'll do 340 divided by 1,000, and then which will give you 0.34. And I believe this is also recorded. So if you guys like want to go back and look at it, I think this will automatically send to you. So you'll have that to reference too. Okay, cool. So
What about that dosage exam? Will there be a calculator provided on the exam soft, or will you have to provide one?
yeah, so I've taken on ExamSoft and on paper. On ExamSoft, the calculator is built in to ExamSoft, and you can use that. And the one I took on paper, they give you this little calculator. And with that, it's just like a basic standard calculator. I just say like, be really careful when you're, because like I kind of have like fat fingers when you're typing it in, make sure you're putting it in right. So I always like double check, but either way, the calculator will be provided for you. You will not be able to use your own.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so 200 micrograms to milligrams. So micrograms is smaller than milligrams, right? So it's kind of like the same one before. So, oh, I'm sorry. This is like all X'd out. Okay, wow. Okay, so 200 micrograms to milligrams. We're going to start with 200 micrograms, and you can either move your decimal up 3 spots, which is going to give you 0.2, or you can do the conversion, which is going to be 200 micrograms divided by 1,000. So either way, if you're moving it mostly from like grams to milligrams or milliliters to liters, it's always going to be a over 1,000 conversion because there's 1,000 difference between them. So it's just knowing whether you're going to multiply them or if you're going to divide them. So for the next one, 2.5 kilograms to pounds. So this one's a little bit different because you need to know your conversion for kilograms to pounds, right? So there's 2.2 pounds in 1 kilogram. So like the saying that, this is how I remember that pounds are bigger, is like everyone always loves when you give their weight in kilograms. So like you'll have patients, and this has happened, like they'd be like, what's my weight in kilograms? Because it always makes them feel better because it's like such a smaller number. So that's just how I remember it, is like pounds is bigger. So there's 1 kilogram and 2.2 pounds. Sorry, this is kind of covered up. So you're given 2.5 kilograms, and then you're always going to give, I'm pretty sure you guys were like taught this method, like the desired over half, but you'll have 2.5 kilograms, and then you know there's 1 kilogram and 2.2 pounds. So then you can cross off your kilograms and know that you're only left with pounds. So you'll be timesing 2.5 times 2.2, and that's going to give you 5.5 pounds. So just remember, like when you know your conversion, if you're doing something and the pounds comes out smaller than the kilograms, that's like a red flag. Like, okay, maybe I did that wrong. Maybe I accidentally divided, because your pounds should always be bigger. Okay, 220 pounds to kilograms. So the same thing, we're going to set up the same way. It's going to be 220 pounds, and then you're going to set up your conversion. So it'll be 2.2 pounds over 1 kilogram. And then you'll just divide, and which it should be smaller because we're given pounds and we want to go down to kilograms. So it'll be 100 pounds. Does that make sense to everyone? Cool. Okay. So this is when these problems are a little bit nicer, when we have the conversion chart, since I'm sure you guys probably don't have it memorized yet, next to us while we're doing it. So we have 60 milliliters to ounces. So we'll go over here and we'll realize, okay, there's 30 milliliters in 1 ounce. And that's like, if you're going to know any conversion, know that conversion, because that is like, yeah, that's just something you want to know. So the way that she sets it up is she does, I do mine like a little bit different, but she does 60 milliliters and then kind of the same thing as we were doing before, right? You know, there's 30 milliliters in 1 ounce. So you're always going to make sure that you can cross off your units. So you always want to match it up. They should never be, it should never be like milliliters and milliliters. They should always be across from each other. So you're going to cross out your milliliters and you're left with 60 divided by 30, which is going to give you 2 ounces. Okay. So 2 cups to milliliters, you start with your 2 cups. And then this one, you kind of, if you know your conversions, you can do it a little bit quicker, but when we're walking through it, we know we're gonna go over here. And I think it's down here. So 1 cup is 8 ounces. So we have our 1 cup to cross off our cups, 8 ounces, right? And then we know that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. We'll cross off our ounces and we're left with milliliters. And that's how you can always make sure that you're doing your math right. As long as you're crossing off your units and you're only left with the one that you want, then you're probably going to be good. So then we'll just times 2 by 8 by 30, and that will give us 480 milliliters. If I'm going too fast, let me know and I can slow down. I kind of like speed talk when I'm nervous. So, okay, let's see. Did I exit this one out? I don't know. I don't know how I cross this one out. Okay, well, this one's not done, but that's okay. So 2 tablespoons to milliliters. Let's see if I can write on it. Okay, so we have 2 tablespoons to milliliters. So we'll come over to our conversion chart, and we know that 1 tablespoon is 15 milliliters. So I'll try to do it the same way that the prior person had done it. I just do it a little bit backwards. So we're starting with 2. Oh, forgive my writing. It is not pretty. Oh, man. Okay. I think you guys know what I'm like trying to do. So we'll start with 2 tablespoons, right? And then we're going to times, by, it's going to be 15 milliliters. 15 milliliters over 1 tablespoon, right? And then we'll just times, okay, I don't know why this is happening. This is so embarrassing. I look so unprepared, but I promise I prepared for this. Oh, I'm so sorry.
You said verbally is great too.
Okay. So we'll do our 2 tablespoons to milliliters. So we'll times 2 by 15, which is going to give us 30, right? Okay, cool. So convert the following decimal hours to hours and minutes. Okay. So for these ones, they have me like teach it this way because it's like the standardized way, but I do mine a little bit different. So you're always going to start with like the minutes, right? So the minutes in this problem is going to be 0.4, which is 0.4 of an hour. So you'll keep your units of an hour. So we know that we need to cross off hours. So we're going to do 1 hour is 60 minutes because we need to get down to minutes, if that makes sense. So we'll cross off our hours and we'll times 0.4 by 60, which is going to give us 24 minutes because ultimately we already know what our hours is, right? So we only really need to find out what 0.4 hours is in minutes. If that makes sense.
That's why it starts 0.4 hours. I was like, why do we start with 0.4? Because we just want to find out that.
Yeah, exactly. So really, ultimately, we're just trying to figure out what 0.4 is in minutes. So sometimes people are able to do like, if they know that if it was like 7.5, they'd know that like you could just times by 4 because, you know, like there's 25 minutes. That's too confusing, but so yeah, ultimately we're just trying to figure out what 0.4 is in minutes. So now that we know that we have 24 minutes, it's asking to convert to hours and minutes. So we take our 7 hours and then we have our 24 minutes. So the next one is similar. We're given our 3 hours, right? So we're not going to mess with that. We're just trying to find out what 0.8 hours is in minutes. So we'll start with our 0.8 hours and then we'll put it our desired over half. So we'll have 1 hour over 60 minutes, which can cross out our hours and which will give us 48 minutes. And then we're left with 3 hours and 48 minutes. So as long as you can look at the problem and understand what it's asking, it makes it a lot simpler. So that's why just doing a ton of practice questions just really helps you be like, okay, I recognize this and this is what I have to do. So for C, for 12.33 hours, it's the same thing. We're going to set it up 0.33 hours, and then it'll just go 1 hour over 60 minutes. It'll be 19.8. So these, the one thing I don't like about these worksheets is it doesn't tell you what to round to. So we kind of just assume like it's not going to be 19.8. We're just going to round up to 20. And that's kind of like the standard. If something doesn't tell you on the exam, if it doesn't tell you to round, do not round. But if it tells you to round, make sure you round or you'll get it wrong if you forget to. So this will round up to 20 minutes. So it'll be 12 hours and 20 minutes. And then the last one right here is 5.15 hours. So the same thing, we'll just set up the 0.15 hours over 60 minutes. And then that'll give us 9. So it'll be 5 hours and 9 minutes. Does everyone feel good about that? Okay, cool. So moving on into like a little bit more complex problems, but still they're super easy once you get the hang of them. So it says the PCP, which is the primary care provider, has ordered 80 milligrams IM of a drug, which is available 200 milligrams over 1 milliliter. How many milliliters will you administer? So like this question, if you've never seen it before, can be like, what the heck is it asking? Like, so really, it really doesn't matter about the front part of this question, and you'll start to get the hang of that is like, okay, they're gonna give you a bunch of unnecessary stuff that just really doesn't matter, that's there to throw you off, right? So it really doesn't matter what they're asking. So the one trick that they teach us is you're always going to start with what's available. So what's available is your 200 milligrams over milliliters. So you'll do your milliliters over dose. So it'll be 1 milliliter, and this is how you write out the problem. So you always start with what's available. So you'll write 1 milliliter over 200 milligrams. And then since we know how we want to match up on the top and on the bottom, we'll take our 80 milligrams and we'll put it over dose, or you can just leave it blank. It doesn't matter if you put over dose or over 1 or whatever you prefer. So then that gives us our equation, right? So that'll give us 0.4 milliliters over dose, because ultimately the best thing to pay attention to in this question is how many milliliters. You always want to pay attention to what unit you're looking for, because if they were wanting milligrams, this whole problem would change. So the step 1 in these problems is to find out what unit they're looking for. And then step 2 is to put that unit that they're looking for always on top. So you'll always put what you're looking for on top, if that makes sense. So we'll do another one, and I think it'll make a little bit more sense. So the NP ordered 80 milligrams PO, which is orally, once a day for a patient. The drug is available in 40 milligram tablets. How many tablets will the patient take each day? So it's asking for tablets. So we want to keep that in mind. So we're always going to put 1 tab on top because that's what it's asking for. So what is available is 40 milligram tablets. So we'll put 1 tablet is 40 milligrams because that's what they told us. And then we know that they ordered 80 milligrams. So the PO and all that literally does not matter. It's just the numbers. So we'll take our 40 and then we'll times it by 80 so that we can cross out our milligrams. And then we're left with tab over day, right? So it'll just be 2 tabs a day. Is that making sense to everyone, or am I not explaining that? Okay. Okay, cool. Your patient has an order for 250 milligrams IV every 6 hours of a drug, which is available in 10 milliliter vials containing 25 milligrams per milliliter. So this is a really good example of some information that's really just not important. So this 10 milliliter is not important in this problem. It's just kind of there to throw you off. So you know that your patient has an order for 250 milligrams, which is what you need to know that. You need to know that. And every 6 hours doesn't matter right now, but the 25 milligrams per milliliter matters because that's what we're given. So that's our available, and that's what the provider ordered. So those are the 2 things you'll look for. You'll look for the unit that they're asking for, which is milliliters right now. And then you'll look for the available and what they ordered. So we'll start with our available, which is 1 milliliter over 25 milligrams. Then what the provider ordered, which is 250 milligrams over dose. So then this is where we're kind of like taking it a step up a notch with the problems. And we'll say, okay, so it's every 6 hours, right? So if it's every 6 hours, how many, I'm trying to think of how to ask this. If there's 24 hours in a day, how many times will that patient get the drug, right? So it'll be 4 times, because 6 times 4 is 24, right? So they'll receive it 4 times during the day. So you'll add that. So if you have your 1 dose, and this is why it's helpful to put it over dose, or you could just leave it blank, but you have your thing set up and then you'll put, okay, I know it's going to be 4 doses over day. You are able to incorporate like the 6-hour conversion, but it does just make it a lot longer. So that's more of a thing they teach us to kind of do like in our head, like critically think like, okay, if they're getting it every 6 hours, there's 24 hours in a day, they're going to get it 4 times. So then our answer will be 40 milliliters a day, because we were able to cross off our milligrams and our doses, and we're left with milliliters per day. So let's do another one. A 155-pound patient is to receive a single IV dose of ondansetron, which is super not important in this problem, 0.15 milligrams per kilogram for prevention of nausea and vomiting. Ondansetron is available in 20 milliliter MDV of 2 milligrams per ml. How many milliliters will you administer? So we know we're looking for milliliters. We know that this is our available, and we know that the provider ordered 0.15 milligrams per kilogram, right? So this is where we're introducing like weight-based calculations. So if it's milligrams per kilogram, you're always going to need to know the weight of the patient, and they're usually going to give it to you in the other unit. So in this case, it's ordered per kilogram. So of course it's going to be in pounds. So we have to convert it. So these problems get kind of lengthy, but don't let them freak you out. They're actually super satisfying when you learn how to do the steps. So you'll always start with your milliliters over dose. So we're looking for milliliters. That's going to go on top. We have 1 milliliter over 2 milligrams. And then we're going to go with what the provider ordered, which is 0.15 milligrams per 1 kilogram. So that'll stay routine, the same, no matter how you do your problems, just stick with those basics. So we'll start there. So then we know, okay, we did the conversion. 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So now we've crossed off our milligrams and we've crossed off our kilograms. So then the patient weighs 155 pounds. Well, now we've crossed off our pounds and we're left with milliliters. And then now all we have to do is multiply across and divide. So we're left with 5.284, which they don't tell you this, but they want you to convert to 5.3. Most exams are gonna say like round to the nearest 10th or round to the nearest 100th. You usually won't put an answer that's that long unless they ask for it. So we have 5.3 milliliters. Does that make sense?
So how do you do that whole math on your calculator? Like how do you do, because it goes, you know, it multiplies, but then it also divides. So how do you
for sure.
do it?
So the best way to do it is to just literally multiply straight across. So you'll do 0.15 times, you can put in the 1 if you want, but it's not going to do anything. So it'll be 0.15 times 155. And then you don't even have to press enter or anything. Then you can just press divided by 2 divided by 2.2. So you can literally just go straight across and put in, like if you're multiplying or dividing, and it'll give you that answer. So if you want to try it and let me know if that works, but it should. That's how I do mine in the calculator, and it works every time. Instead of trying to get all fancy with like parentheses and stuff, I'm like, no, we're just keeping it simple.
It worked. It worked.
Okay. Cool.
Can you show the tablet one again? Or can you, the end of it, like
this one right here?
Yeah. So the end where it's 2 tabs, so it'd be 2 tablets a day is what? Oh, because they ordered that. Okay, never mind. I was confusing myself.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's super common to overthink the problems and be like, wait, that doesn't really make sense. That's why practice questions are just really, really good to do. And like, you know, in this group, I don't know if you guys are like incoming to core and know anyone, like exchange phone numbers or whatever you want to do. Like it super helps to have people to talk to and communicate with. Okay. So now we need to do, okay, we're on drop factor. Okay, does everyone understand like these weight-based ones before we move on?
Yeah.
Kind of. That was not a very sure. Yeah, I was kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. I just have to practice a lot. Just to do it over and over and over until it sinks in.
Yeah, for sure. And when you guys start core, I'm assuming you start in January. You guys will have like a month and a half, maybe 2, maybe around a month of dosage calc workshops, and you'll have, I think you have like 2 or 3 of those, and then in your fundamentals, I think your fundamentals lab, you're going to take a whole day to just do dosage calc. So I promise you will not short you on dosage calc practice.
Do you have any like other worksheets, like ones that you didn't go over, to where we can like try and do it ourselves and then show you and see if, you know, we got it right.
Like
kind of.
right now?
Not right now, but I mean,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
send them to us, and then like we can work on them this weekend, and then maybe send it to you next week, and then you can like, if you can check it for us, something like that.
Yeah, of course. I have some that they gave me. So I will email those to you guys after this. And then, yeah, feel free to like, I'll send you guys my phone number in the chat and my email. Text me, email me, whatever, and I'll go ahead and look over them. And if you guys have any more questions or want to meet, I'm totally good to do that. So just let me know what you need, but I'll send you guys some worksheets after this.
Okay, cool.
They gave us a list of things so you can go through, but those websites, I found that they were very confusing, and like they try to make it simple and easy to understand, but a lot of the questions didn't really make sense. So we were like, what we're supposed to do this? They don't give enough information. So if you have more of these problems that we can practice, other than the ones that they already gave, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
because
so
those
the
websites
practice
are
questions-
not.
Yeah, the questions that I give you are not going to be off of one of those websites. I don't know if we got those websites back in semester 5, but no, these are going to be just like this, but just kind of different numbers pretty much. And I can always, like, if you guys are like not liking them, I can write, different questions that I know were like some of the ones that I was like, oh, like this is familiar. I have so many notes on dosage calc. I can like make a worksheet and send it to you if those aren't working for you. But yeah, the things that I'll send you they're not going to be from a website, because I know that the websites can be kind of expensive or confusing. Okay, so drop factor. This is pretty much the same thing, but people get freaked out by hearing drop factor because they're like, oh my gosh, IV tubing, like pumps, like what? But it's super not like that. So all it is just a different unit. So this one says 500 milliliters is infused over 6 hours with a drop factor of 20 GTTS per milliliter. So GTTS just means drops per milliliter, like out of a little like vial or like out of an IV pump or something. What is the drop factor? So the same thing, we're always going to start with what we're given and what we're looking for. So why does it do that? The drop factor, right, which is going to be GTTS per minute. So that's something to write down, star, highlight, whatever. Remember, if it just says drop factor, it might not give you the unit. So you need to know that drop factor is GTTS over minutes or milliliters, either one. So in this case, it's asking for per minute, but it's given per milliliters, but that's okay because it gives us the time in the problem. So we'll start with our GTTS over minutes. So we have 20 GTTs over 1 milliliter, which is what they gave us, which is the available. Then we know that we have 500 milliliters that the doctor ordered. So we'll times by 500 and cancel out our milliliters. So then now we have the basics down. We'll say, okay, well, the 500 milliliters needs to go in over 6 hours. So this is a way that you can kind of incorporate the hours and the conversion of minutes into the problem. So we'll say, okay, 500 milliliters over 6 hours. And then we'll say, okay, well, we know that 1 hour is 60 minutes. So we'll cross out our hours and we're left with a GTTS over a minute. And that's what we're looking for. And that's how you know you're done, is you have the conversion that you need on the top and on the bottom and your units match up. So we have 20 times 500 divided by 6 divided by 60 is going to give us 27.77, which will then round up to 28. And they didn't write the units on this, but it is GTTS per minute.
So you said it's the drop factor is always TTS per minute, unless
it'll be per minute or per milliliter.
So how are they going to say if it's going to be per milliliter, or if they don't, we just assume it's per minute?
Yeah, no, that was confusing. Okay, so it'll usually give it to you in a problem like this. It'll always say like 20 drops per milliliter. And unless there's like an hour or something in the problem, it'll just stay with milliliters, but you probably won't encounter it. Well, it won't tell you what the unit is going to be. So you shouldn't run into that problem. I memorized it as 20 GTTS per milliliter. But usually when you see time in a question, you kind of know like, okay, we're probably going to be incorporating like minutes or hours into the problem, if that makes sense. So kind of just stick with milliliters, and it'll usually prompt you with the time, because if you didn't do the time on this, you'd get like a crazy amount of drops, and that would like it wouldn't work. And usually pumps in the hospitals, they're set up to drops per minute. They're not set up to drops per milliliter, right? Because you want like 28 drops a minute. It wouldn't make sense to have like 28 drops per milliliter. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. That confused me too. And something that was cool is when we did Dosage Calc Lab and fundamentals, they have IV pumps at school, and your teacher will actually show you like when you squeeze the IV valve, there's like a little dropper, and it'll be like, okay, that makes total sense. Like I'm not gonna have like something 638 drops a minute, like that's just not attainable. So it'll kind of help you when you can see it and like visualize a little bit. Okay. 1,000 milliliters is infused over 5 hours with a drop factor of 10 GTTS per milliliter. What is the drop factor? So we know that we're looking for drop factor, which is GTTS over minutes, and we're given 1,000 milliliters over 5 hours. So we're going to start with our 10 GTTS per milliliter, and then we're going to go with what the doctor ordered, which is 1,000 milliliters over the time that the 1,000 milliliters needs to be infused over. So now we can cross out our milliliters, and then we know, okay, you're never gonna give a something in hours. It's always gonna say like how many minutes, especially in drop factor, it's not gonna go hours. It's always gonna be minutes. So when in doubt, usually just convert to minutes. So now you have your 5 hours. 1 hour is 60 minutes, and you're done with your hours. Oops, you're done with your hours. So now I'll give you guys a second if you want to try to do it in the calculator, and someone can tell me what they get.
I got 33.
Okay, cool. Yeah, good job. So yeah, just 33 drops per minute. Is that starting to make sense kind of?
Yeah, I think just memorizing the equations and how to convert would be really easy, the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Once you start to see more of the questions, you're like, oh, I got this. It's kind of like, honestly, like muscle memory. Like you just kind of know like, oh, this is how I answer the question. And then the calculator, it does the math for you. Like it's pretty straightforward. It's just getting exposure to all the types of questions, which I think is the most important part. So I's and O's, intake and output. Don't let that scare you. You're going to have I's and O's questions starting right when you get into fundamentals. It's not a big deal. This is when you knowing your conversions is seriously imperative, because on the fundamentals exam, they're not going to tell you what your conversions are, right? You're taking the dosage calc exam and you're expected to know what your conversions are. And your teacher's just really nice if they're going to give you a conversion thing, because they're not always going to. So we have 20 ounces of water. So, okay, so pretty much this equation is giving us a whole bunch of intake and outputs, right? And we need to figure out what is the total output in milliliters, but they're giving it to us in like ounces, cups, and ounces. Before we go into this, one of the key things, and I would write this down, is anytime it says ice or ice chips or anything like that, it's always half. So it's because if you think about it, like ice isn't fully water, like you're only getting like half the amount, right? So if they say your patient had 16 ounces of ice chips, well, their intake is really all going to be 8 ounces. So ice chips will always be half. That's why on here it's like divided by 2, because it will really only be 15 instead of 30. So ice is always half, and that's just something like, just know ice is always going to be half whenever you see it. So and I think that's written on here somewhere.
Why is 1 cup times 240?
Okay, so yeah, I'll explain that to you, because 1 cup, I didn't like, I didn't do all of that. But I think she used it from on here. So 1 cup is 240 milliliters. And that's just why she thought it would be easier to just write like times whatever it was. I don't usually do that. I usually would like walk you through it. I'm sorry, I could have covered those up, but so 1 cup is 240 milliliters. Since we're trying to convert it into milliliters, she's multiplying by each of the units, right? So 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. And then 1 cup is 240 milliliters. So each of these conversions is just what that single unit is in milliliters, if that makes sense. So like, we know that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters, right? Which is on our conversion table. So we'll times 30 by 20, which is going to give us 600 milliliters. So then 1 cup of broth is 200, or we'll times it by 240 milliliters, but we already know 1 cup is 240 milliliters. So it's just going to stay as 240. So 12 ounces of soda times 30. Well, we know that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. So we'll just times 30 by 12. It'll give us 360. And then 10 ounces of juice will give us 300 because we're just multiplying by what the single unit is. And then here, the 8 ounces of ice chips, really, it's only going to be times 15 because you always divide the ice chips in half. So it makes it easier for you if it's in ounces and you want to multiply by 30 and then divide it, that's totally fine. Or if you just want to look at it and know like, okay, ice is always in half, so I'm just going to multiply by 15. That's fine too, and that'll give you 120. So then we're going to take all of those and we'll add them all up, and that'll give us 1620, and that's the intake of the client for that day or whatever this equation is. There'll be questions that'll say like, okay, so calculate the intake, and then it'll also say the outtake or the output, right? So it'll say like an emesis of 100 milliliters, or it'll say, you know, drainage out of a Foley, like 30 milliliters. And then you'll kind of like, it'll be a game of like adding and subtracting, and if that makes sense, to figure out what the client's intake and output was for the day. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Jacqueline, you look overwhelmed.
Oh no, it was confusing for a little bit, and then I was like, really, how? But once you said the milliliters, it made more sense because I was like, where is she getting this 240? But
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was already written on there. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Makes sense now.
Okay, cool. Okay, sweet. So moving down to weight-based, which we kind of already got like a little dabbled into, so this shouldn't be too bad. So a 7-year-old, which doesn't matter, 50-pound child, that's important. So we want to keep that. With acute otitis media, okay, that doesn't matter that he has an ear infection, to receive oral amoxicillin, 80 milligrams per kilograms per day, divided into every 12 hours, which we want to know, right? Oh, I'm just kidding. The amoxicillin is available in 75 milliliter bottles, which doesn't matter, containing 400 milligrams over 5 milliliters. How many milliliters will you administer per dose? So that sounds like a lot, but let's break it down. So we're looking for milliliters. So that's where we're going to start with, right? So our milliliters is going to start on top, and we know that we have 400 milligrams per 5 milliliters. So we're going to write that. We're just going to start there. So write 5 milliliters over 400 milligrams. And then we'll say, okay, well, now we know our available. Well, let's figure out what the provider ordered. So the provider ordered 80 milligrams per kilograms per day. Say, okay, so I know that I need my milligrams on top. Let's go 80 milligrams here. And even though it's kilograms per day, we can just put kilograms per day on the bottom. No big deal. Just leave it like that. So now we've crossed out our milligrams. And we'll say, okay, well, we need to either get rid of the day or the weight. I would always pick the weight first. So we're going to say, okay, 1 kilogram is going to be 2.2 pounds. Great. We crossed off our kilograms. And now we know that it's 2.2 pounds. And look, they gave us our weight in 50 pounds. We'll plug in our weight up there and we'll cross off our pounds. So now we're left with 5 milliliters over day, right? So you can either calculate it then and then do the day if you want to, or you can just add it into the problem like they did here. So they just put a 1 under, or you could just put whatever you wanted. And then you'll say, okay, it's 1 day, and every 12 hours, that's twice, because 24 hours is in 1 day, right? So 12 hours is half of that. So it'll be 2 doses, if that makes sense. I didn't say that very good, but you know what I mean? So then we'll calculate it all, right? And I don't know if that's what that is, but then it's going to give us 11.363 because we multiplied and then divided per milliliter. Because we were able to pretty much cross everything out. We were able to cross our day out. Because even though your day is back there and it's like, oh, I can't cross that out. Well, it's still on the top and bottom, so you can still cross it out. So you're left with your milliliters per dose.
Would you still put it in like the 11.36 instead of the 11.3, or would you do it as a like 11.4?
Oh, cool. So they're so bad on these worksheets about telling you what to round to. It was honestly just kind of like, I think Miss Serva did this one. Just always go off of what the paper tells you. It'll usually, on the exams or on whatever practice questions you're doing, it's always going to tell you like round to the nearest 10th or 100th. If you want to be
Okay.
safe, you can just keep it as 100, or you can round it up. It usually doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
I
Yeah.
have a question. Why wouldn't it be 2 doses per day, like for the last part of it?
Okay, so because what the provider ordered is 80 milligrams per kilogram per day divided into every 12 hours. So you'll have to give it 2 different times throughout the day. So that'll be 1 day is 2 doses because 1 day is 24 hours, but it's divided in half. So you'll have to give it 2 times throughout the day because you'll have to give it like say 1200, right? And then you'll have to give it again in another 12 hours. Does that make sense?
Oh, I know what
Just
you
confused
meant.
as to why it's not 2 over.
Because you have to cancel the day. The day is on the bottom, so the day has to be on the top to cross it.
Oh, I see what you're
You're
saying.
looking for doses.
Yeah, that's why I'm confused, because for the one before it's 50 pounds over 1, and that makes sense. But like, why is the 1 day on top and the 2 doses on the bottom?
Oh, I see. Because, okay, so yeah, like she said earlier in the equation, we were left with kilograms per day and our day was on the bottom. So we couldn't put the day on the bottom or it wouldn't cancel out. And that's just kind of a way of doing this kind of desired over half is kind of a way of saving yourself, because if you're getting confused, you're like, okay, well, if it's on the bottom, I know it's got to be on the top. So it's just kind of how the equation panned out. But you always, since the day was on the bottom, it's always going to go on top. It would totally change the equation if it was flipped around and we wouldn't have gotten the right answer because we would have multiplied by another 2. I know it's like, that wasn't a great explanation. But that's just that's the only reason like I can give is because the day turned out to be on the bottom. It just has to be on the top.
It was a good explanation, Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you.
It was good.
Deanna, I don't know if that makes any more sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so that's all the problems I have on here. But I will stop sharing 1 second and oh man, I did not see all of these chats. I'm so sorry. I couldn't see the chat box. Okay, cool. So I will send my phone number right now in the chat box. If you guys have any questions, totally text me, whatever. And then I'll also send my email. I actually, if you're here, this sounds really dumb, but just type here in the chat box because I have all of your guys' emails. It'll just be easier for me to write down names and copy and paste emails. So there's my email, and then I'll write down names of who's here and send it through that. So I'll just do that. Okay, so I'll make sure I get the people that had to leave. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, you guys are totally good to go unless you have any questions or anything, or if you want to like schedule a time to Zoom or meet up on campus or anything, I'm here to help you guys with whatever. Or if you guys would like need help with your other classes, let me know. I love talking about funds and health assessment and all that. It's really fun. So just let me know if you guys have any questions, but that's all I have for today. So yeah.
Thank you
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sorry, what did you say, Deanna?
Just said thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get your phone number and stuff in my phone.
Oh,
Okay.
no, you're okay. I'm just writing down names, so you're okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. It's nice to just talk to people who are further along.
Yeah, definitely. No, I know the feeling.
It's a little daunting at times.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I still feel the same way. I'm only going into semester 7, so it's
Okay.
hard, but I'm past both of the dosage calcs for like 100% first try. So that's why Ms. Chafin was like, could you teach it? But yeah, I mean, I have done pretty well in the other classes. So if you have any questions about anything, just let me know.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
Yeah, of course. Have a great rest of your night.
You too. Thank you.
Mhm.